Hi, team. Welcome to 10 Talks. Today's conversation is all about you. And most importantly, it's about you getting the help that you need and want to really be set up to win in life. I mean, that's what Mark and I are totally committed to. We want to really anchor into the power of team. What does it mean, and why is it so important for you to win your life as intentionally as it is to win sport? So, Mark, what's beautiful about the power of team is that it gives us an opportunity to really kind of feel safe. I mean, certainly in sports, the minute we walk on the field or into the locker room, we have our coaches, we have our teammates, we feel safe. That's really our place. And you and I are totally committed to that safe feeling in life, about our mental health, about really just how to manage it. And so what's happening when we don't ask for help?
Well, then you're suffering in silence. Hi again, everybody. So it's Mark. The athletes are it's such an interesting culture because they don't work in a vacuum. Unless even folks in individual sport, they
Mhm.
typically have different folks that are around them or people that they're competing against or whatever. So what I love about the collaborative approach to working with athletes is that you work with the athlete themselves, but then you try to then support everyone around them. So let's talk about who the different players are in loose use of that term, obviously. So you have the athlete, you have their family, you have their teammates, you have their coach and staff or support staff, you have the referee and umpires that might be on the field. Uh, Outside of that, in the healthcare landscape, there are a variety of different folks who could be available to work with that athlete. So you have you, a coach, me, a psychiatrist. You have therapists of all different education levels, and that all of them can be helpful there too. So you have licensed clinical social workers, you have PhD level psychologists. So there are different people who can be useful. And the college landscape, there's another side step. There will be a college mental health center potentially. There might be a dorm advisor, like a resident assistant for whatever, maybe for freshmen or whatever. There might be a dorm counselor. So I just like rattled off nearly 20 different categories of people who might work with an athlete or could work with an athlete. So they need to first know that they're not alone. Depression or mood disorders are incredibly isolating. They make you think that you're the only person who is going through this or has ever gone through this. It's like wearing dark colored sunglasses. And so we're here. We're a resource. We're going to be able to help you take those dark colored sunglasses off so you can actually see the world in all its colors and beauty, and so that you can experience life and sport back where you were or even better than before. So,
And to the person who's committed to peak performing and isn't on a sports team and still needs that team of support, they certainly have their families, their friends, maybe their coworkers. So, how do we get them to take the sunglasses off and really recognize, wow, this isn't a bad thing. This doesn't mean it's a weakness, that I'm not feeling like myself. This is not kind of working for me. I know that throughout our series you've been incredible about really the power of a support team, because if I'm depressed, I'm the last person to know it. And so really needing my friends and my family to point out, hey, Carlette, you don't really seem like yourself, or what's going on? How do we make that bridge to where I recognize, okay, I maybe need some help, and then I actually have the courage to ask for help?
well, so it's a bit of a shift in mindset. There's that common stat that's thrown around by many different organizations that 1 in 5 people has mental illness. 5 in 5 people deal with stressful life events and disorders. So if you recognize that really anybody can go through this stuff, then it's not going to be I love using this term, the othering of that 1 in 5 people. It's just ridiculous. Anybody can go through tough stuff. And so once you realize that you're not special, that you could actually go through bad stuff, then you're going to be much more likely to accept or look for help because it's what anybody would do if they're in that situation. So that's like the big first change in mindset that I'm very, very passionate about doing. And there's a nonprofit that I'm associated with that actually has that language called the Same Here Mental Health Global Mental Health Movement. It's actually a lot in the sports world, and so if you do make that switch, people will be more willing to actually look for help. But it's easier said than done.
Well, let's start with the mindset. Really, a growth mindset is a winning strategy for peak performance, for getting that life that you've always wanted, winning, whatever language we want to use. Why would we not have a growth mindset as we actually own our mind, our emotions, what's happening? And I really value recognizing that all of us are struggling in some fashion. And what a gift to really think about it the same way we would with sport. We would never walk out on the field and not have a coach and not have 3 or 4 coaches on the bench that are for us in a huge way. What a gift to be able to say, I'm going to set my life up as intentionally as I am with sport and really get that support team around me.
So yeah, what a great conversation. So growth mindset versus fixed mindset can be used in lots of different areas. For performance, I've talked countless times about process orientation versus results orientation. So you got to put the work in. You can't just be focused on the specific stat or goal that you want to achieve in the future. So if you're dealing with XYZ mental health struggle, you can't just expect that things are going to get better unless you put the work in. So really, and thinking it's going to happen overnight is ridiculous. So you actually have to do a lot of those preventative steps, which is probably what is the real issue with the United States, as far as we think that we just want to get to the end goal. And so we need to start working on maybe preventative measures on lifestyle changes that can actually help with that. So,
or we
also
just want to take a pill, or we just something simple. We're just looking for quick and simple. Our
right.
life is worth so much. Why aren't we just really committed to winning the day and figuring it out?
Work on the process itself. And so part of that is actually asking for help and leaning on people who literally trained to do this. Right. So what do you and I do for a living? We work with people to help them figure themselves out. I'm not going to tell someone what to do. I'm going to give them some advice and guidelines. And the answers at the back of the textbook is that they actually knew the answer all along. They just needed to figure out which page it was on.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in coaching, we really define that. I mean, as a coach, as a life coach, as a sport coach, we bring out the best in everyone, right? You've already got all the talent in you. No athlete shows up and a coach puts the talent in you. They actually just bring it out. So what you and I are committed to doing with their life is being able to bring out the best in them. And then the beautiful part is, once we get them understanding with a growth mindset that this is a journey, this is a process, I'm going to win the day, win kind of the small things, all of a sudden they can have some victories in their mental health side and really this training for a life, rather than everything just being another struggle.
So you mean using sport as a metaphor, like both literally and figuratively? So maybe the off season should be spent training and with a preventative mindset too. I mean, that's why I think that this podcast series is so useful, because it will provide folks hopefully with at least an idea, tools to use in different areas.
Okay, so I've got a growth mindset. I get the new thinking that it's time for me to get a support team for my off the field as much as on the field team. What's next?
So you've now accepted a help. So now we actually have to listen to that advice and follow through. So the different, we've talked about treatment plans before to a degree, but the typical thing is lifestyle modification first, then working with a therapist to actually have tangible goals that we're working on. If it's anxiety management, a fear ladder or whatever, a coach, and I don't want to speak for you, would typically take whatever that plan is and then make sure that they're committed to it, right?
That's right. The practice, right? We're the process.
Stick-to-itiveness. Yeah. And the person who's going through this hopefully is getting good advice to know that it's not going to happen overnight. And assuming they stick with the plan, things will actually get better. And if they're being prescribed a medication, they should be adhering to that every day. They shouldn't just be taking it every once in a while and thinking it's going to work the same way.
So, Mark, as we talk about this, of course, we know the winning strategies, but they're hard to do. I mean, it's hard to take your vitamins or take your pills or do whatever. The routine of it can get boring and discouraging because we really wish that immediately things would be different. How do we sustain that hope?
So hopefully you got some people reminding you of what we're looking forward to achieve in the future. And hopefully also you're seeing some incremental gains and being reminded of that in session. And that, hey, look back to where we were and see the growth that we've had up to this point, and that we can expect to have even more in the future. That's why follow-up appointments typically are at pretty good intervals. Every 2 to 4 weeks for med management or whatever. Therapy is every week because it's dose dependent, just like medication. So you can be reminded of the growth you've made and continue to check off different goals you've had, and then create new ones.
And what about the person who says, yes, I want help, and okay, I'm for this. I just think that maybe I need to only show up once a month, or just let me talk to you once, and then I've got this for a while.
Well, they can try that and find that it won't work, and then we'll have to go back to the beginning and then recommit to whatever treatment plan we were creating. That happens a lot.
It does, and that's why I want to be real about it, right? Is that we
Yeah. I
have the
mean,
best intentions, but it's hard to show up week after week.
yeah. I mean, and sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 different attempts to realize on our own that that level of commitment's not there, or we need to actually try harder. In substance abuse treatment, right? That there's a lot of people. It takes a few times, but then eventually it sticks and it's useful.
So I'm figuring it out. I've gotten support. I'm showing up to my appointments. Let's coach up the support team. So what do parents, coaches? I mean, we have a whole support team around us, and sometimes we can be the performance barrier. We can be the one that's bringing that person back. How do we set them up for great success?
So I love using the phrase cheerleader as far as being a support person for the athlete that's struggling. Parents and guardians need to know sort of their role in the system, that they obviously are the closest person to the athlete, especially if it's a young adult. So technically when they're 18 to 25, we have to be delicate because we want to foster that independence. That being said, the parents still need to be at the ready and there. And if they're being invited to session by the therapist or the psychiatrist and whoever, they should show up, or at least be able to call in or video call or whatever. But recognize that they're not living the day-to-day life that the athlete might be doing in the dorms or whatever. And they might have to step out of session for a brief period while that privacy is still maintained. Now, for a younger adult, I still would absolutely do the exact same thing for an adolescent. Latency age, so 12 and under, those folks, the parents are really still in charge. And so it depends on where the developmental stage and how much involvement that parent's going to have. The coach, you could literally swoop in and put coach in for the parent. Same timeline, same role, because they're the pseudo parent anyway, right, on the team or in college or whatever, when the parent can't physically be there.
So are there words of wisdom? Are there cheerleading kind of words or plays that a parent can say? And also, what should they not be saying, or a coach?
Well, you have to be careful with just the advice given. The person's got to be willing to even hear it in the first place. And so the easiest thing to do would be to just genuinely check in. So show genuine interest and just say, how are you doing? I know this sounds super simple and trite and all that stuff, but just being there and being a sounding board, it speaks volumes. Whether or not you think that it's actually helping, the fact that the person knows that you're there, it is helping. It's not really the words so much as it is the action. And that is how it is at all times. Stuff not to do is to make demands and say, you have to do this, and you have to go. The adolescent, especially, or young adults, probably then going to oppose and do the exact opposite. And then that ruins them actually help seeking. So it's a gentle dance. Yeah. And you want to make sure that you're there and supportive and seen.
So a lot of times when we want to be a great cheerleader and we want to help, it becomes about us. We start to talk about us, or what, I need you to do this, or I need you to do that. How do we keep us on the bench and really lead that support?
I mean, it's just like working with a toddler and thinking about power struggles. Like when is it important to assert your role as a parent.
Mhm.
So if the patient or athlete is not getting out of bed or attending to activities of daily living, like, showering,
Yeah.
eating, stuff that like they should be doing, you have to assert yourself. And that's when the parent needs to do their job and be like, no, we need to do this stuff. If they forgot to like, pay one bill or what, don't like just go at them.
Yeah.
But it's really making sure what needs to be changed and what can wait, or okay, pick my battle here.
Yeah.
Maybe not this specific sense.
Well, Mark, this is such a gift to really be able to set people up to ask for help. That's what's so valuable, and really about the power of team, just starting to think of our life team as valuable as our sport team or even our team at work. And so, from a words of wisdom perspective, what really is the best way to set a person up to ask for help and to start the journey?
So it comes down to education and making sure that you're aware of what to look for with mental health symptoms. And so depression, we talked about SIGI caps. So sleep, interest, guilt, energy, concentration, appetite, psychomotor slowing, and suicidality. So if you see any of that, do something about it.
Right.
Actually say something. The common misconception is that you're going to plant suicidal thoughts in the person who you're talking to. You're not going to do that. In fact, it's actually going to be very relieving that the conversation was even brought up. So like that needs to just stop. So talking, allowing them to then respond and say, yes, I'm not doing okay. And then offering, would you like some help getting help? Like to make that phone call or whatever. And then basically being a bit of a go-between. Once the person's connected with a resource, then being the cheerleader.
Yeah.
So that's the best thing as a parent, and as a coach, being aware of how your athletes are actually doing off the field. I mean, like you're a family, right? And you're the pseudo parent, so maybe check in with the captains, who then act as probably the older siblings. I mean, it's just, again, it's a system, and making sure that if there's late to practice, checking in with them, making sure that they're not looking like they've gone to the party the night before. And, are you really prepped for the game?
Yeah.
Just doing your job.
Well, Mark, these are great words of wisdom. What about the person that really covers this up really well? Because certainly as high achievers, we know to perform and we know to kind of stuff all the feelings down. And actually, performing feels good to us because it's all about just getting out there and kind of forgetting about this emotional stuff or how I'm feeling. And we're actually relieved to just be able to get out there and perform. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to maybe face any of that. How do we work with somebody who's very good at covering it all up?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the athletic population, their athletic identity is so strong, and it tends to be what they enjoy,
Yeah.
and their primary tool for management of stress and anxiety and whatnot. And so those kinds of people, you need to see how they're doing off the field. And
Okay.
so if their academics are failing, or they're not attending to ADLs, as I've discussed, outside of sport, like that they're somehow able to white knuckle it on the field, that's one thing. But if they're not, you still got to take them aside. You would not do it in the middle of practice.
Right.
It would be after practice, private conversation, check in to see how they're doing. And if they're not opening up, be like, I'm going to call on your bluff. I know you well. You have to know them well in order to be able to have this conversation. Just be like, cut it out. I know things aren't going well. So tell me what you think about this. And you, depending on how the approach goes and how well you know them, they're gonna open up eventually. I mean, they can stay clammed up for a while, but you keep calling them out. That's why you really have to depend on people. The athlete has to depend on people who care about them and love them and know them, to be able to get really anywhere.
Well, and Mark, that's the power of relationships and getting real. And so we started our series on caring and connecting, that this is a very authentic journey, that you can't just kind of show up and want to care because you need the athlete to perform or care because you need the person at work to perform. Welcome to the process of being in relationship and really caring about people. And that's when you're going to notice the small nuances or the different things that are happening. And I greatly value you speaking about what happens off the field or away from sport. That's really where we're managing our life. On the field or in sport, we're really comfortable with that. That's where we have a whole system. it's our life that we don't have that system. And really, our desired outcome in sports life coaching is to create a system in their life as intentionally as it is in sport. So now we're winning on and off the field, which is a great way to start living life.
Absolutely.
So team, it's up to you. Go out and start your journey. Kind of figure out, is this working for me? How am I doing in my life? And most importantly, we want you to win whatever your definition is and get some help. Ask for help. Share that you want some help with your support team. Know what a gift it is and the power of strength to really care about you enough to go for what matters to you and to get a support team around you so that we can all help you get set up for great success. Thank you, Mark, for the gift of you being on our team.
Thank you very much.